The moment my daughter wrinkled her nose and told me my truck was embarrassing for Vicky, I knew something had to change. We were standing in my driveway, morning sun hitting the hood of my old Ford F-150. I'd just gotten back from fixing Mrs. Garsh's electrical outlet. Easy job, took me 20 minutes, but she insisted on paying me $50 and sending me home with leftover tamales. My name's Harold Peterson. I'm 68 and I've been an electrician for 45 years before I retired. These days, I do handyman work around the neighborhood because sitting around all day makes me feel useless. Been living in this house for 15 years now, bought it after my wife Linda died from cancer. Needed a fresh start for me and the kids. Patricia, my 32-year-old daughter, was standing there with her arms crossed, looking at my truck like it had personally offended her. Dad, seriously, she said, it smells like wire nuts and paint. Vicky shouldn't have to ride in that thing. Vicky is my 7-year-old granddaughter, Patricia's kid. Been living in my house for 8 months now, since Patricia's divorce went through. Temporarily, she said back then. That was 8 months ago. What's wrong with the smell of honest work? I asked, but Patricia just rolled her eyes. It's embarrassing, Dad. You need to get something more appropriate, like a minivan or something clean that doesn't scream handyman. I looked at my truck. Yeah, it smelled like work. Wire strippers, electrical tape, sometimes sawdust from helping neighbors with small projects. That truck had been with me for 12 years, never let me down once. Got it right after Linda passed, needed something reliable to haul tools and materials when I started taking on weekend jobs to keep busy. Nathan, my 30-year-old son, wandered out of the house at that moment. He's been living here even longer than Patricia came back after he lost his job at the bank 2 years ago. Still haven't seen him fill out a single application since then. Morning, Dad, Nathan mumbled, scratching his head. He was wearing the same sweatpants he'd had on yesterday. Your sister thinks I need a new vehicle, I told him. Nathan shrugged. Maybe something newer would be good. That's Nathan for you. Never takes a stand on anything. Just goes along with whatever Patricia says to keep the peace. Patricia pointed at my truck again. Dad, I'm not trying to be mean, but when I have to ask you to pick up Vicky from school, I don't want the other parents thinking we're what? She hesitated. Poor, that word hit me harder than I expected. Poor, like working with your hands for 45 years, paying off this house 3 years ago, raising 2 kids alone after their mother died, and keeping food on the table somehow made you poor. I walked past them both and went inside. The kitchen still smelled like the coffee I'd made at 6 a.m. before heading out to Mrs. Garcia's place. The same kitchen where Linda used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings, where I'd taught both kids how to wire a light switch when they were teenagers. Patricia and Nathan followed me in. Dad, Patricia said, her voice softer now. I didn't mean it like that. I just think you deserve something nice. I poured myself another cup of coffee and leaned against the counter. The counter I'd installed myself when we first moved in here. Solid oak butcher block that had lasted through countless family dinners, homework sessions, and late-night conversations. How exactly am I supposed to afford something nice? Well, Patricia said, and I could hear something in her tone that made me pay attention. I've been thinking about that. Nathan sat down at the kitchen table and started scrolling through his phone. This was clearly Patricia's show. I have this opportunity, she continued, to open a daycare. There's this perfect space downtown and I already have 3 families interested. I nodded slowly. That sounds good. You should do that. The thing is, I need startup money for licensing, equipment, insurance, all that stuff. Here it comes, I thought. How much? Well, the bank says if you put the house up as collateral, I could get a loan for $75,000. I set my coffee cup down carefully on the counter Linda and I had picked out together 15 years ago. You want me to mortgage my house? It's not really a mortgage, Dad. It's more like a business loan with the house as backup, and I'd pay it back once the daycare gets going. I looked around the kitchen. This house had been mine for 15 years. Bought it after Patricia's mother died, wanted a fresh start for all of us. Worked every weekend for 12 years to pay it off early, took on electrical jobs for half the city, saved every penny I could. Patricia, I said slowly, when's the last time you had a job? Her face flushed red. I've been looking, Dad. It's hard with Vicky and everything. When's the last time you had an interview? I have one next week. Nathan looked up from his phone. Didn't you say that last week too? Patricia shot him a look that could melt steel. I'm being selective. Okay. I need something that works with Vicky's schedule. I walked to the window and looked out at my truck. Mrs. Garcia's tamales were still sitting on the passenger seat, wrapped in foil. That woman was 78 years old and still insisted on paying me full price, even though I told her neighbor rates should be lower. She'd lived through her husband's death, raised 4 kids on a seamstress salary, and never once asked anyone to bail her out of her problems. Dad? Patricia said behind me, what do you think? What I thought was that I'd been supporting 2 grown adults for months now. What I thought was that neither of them had contributed a dime to groceries, utilities, or anything else since they'd moved in. What I thought was that Patricia was awfully quick to criticize my truck but never offered to help with gas money. But what I said was, let me think about it. Patricia's face lit up. Really? Dad, this could be amazing. I could finally be independent, while living in my house, eating my food, using my electricity, and asking me to risk my home for her business idea. I said I'd think about it. I repeated. That night, after Patricia had gone out with friends and Nathan was upstairs playing video games, I sat on my back porch with Vicky. She was coloring in one of those books with the princesses, tongue sticking out in concentration. The porch had been Linda's favorite spot in the evenings. She used to sit out here with her tea, watching the neighbors walk their dogs. Grandpa, Vicky said without looking up, Mom says you might buy a new car, maybe. Would you like that? She shrugged. I like your truck. It smells like you. Out of the mouths of babes. Linda would have laughed at that. She used to say my clothes smelled like copper wire and determination. Vicky, has your mom been going to job interviews? She looked up at me with those big brown eyes, same color as Linda's had been. She goes out a lot, but she always comes back with shopping bags. That got my attention. Shopping bags, yeah, new clothes and stuff. She said it's for interviews, but she has lots of interview clothes now. I made a mental note of that. If Patricia was unemployed and broke, where was the money for new clothes coming from? Vicky, do you like living here with Grandpa? She nodded enthusiastically. I love it. You make the best pancakes, and you fix everything when it breaks. That's what I'd done my whole life. Fixed things. Fixed electrical problems for half the city, fixed the leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom, fixed Nathan's bike when he was 12, fixed Patricia's car when she was in college. Always fixing things for other people. What if Mommy and Uncle Nathan had to get their own house? Vicky frowned. Would I still see you? Of course I'm your grandpa. Nothing changes that. She went back to coloring, and I sat there thinking about Tamales and truck smells and what it means to be poor. The sun was setting behind the maple trees I'd planted when we first moved here. Linda had wanted something that would grow with us, she said. Those trees were taller than the house now. The next morning, I made a decision, but not the one Patricia was expecting. I called my lawyer, Eddie Martinez. Known him for 15 years, did the electrical work on his house when he was starting his practice. Good man, honest, never charged me full price when I needed legal advice after Linda died. Eddie, I said when he picked up, I need some advice about protecting myself from family. Harold, what's going on? I told him the whole story. The mortgage request, the unemployment situation, the general feeling that I was being taken advantage of. I told him about the shopping bags and the fake interviews, and how neither of my kids had contributed a penny to household expenses. Eddie listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, Harold, what you're describing sounds like financial elder abuse. Come on, Eddie, it's not abuse.